Welcome to Healthy Vibrations, a platform that brings together changemakers, trailblazers, people who are here to effectuate our youth. Our today's speaker is a very interesting speaker, and our primary target audience is parents today. So I'd like every parent to tune in because you're going to benefit a lot. We have Cindy Dickman with us. She's joining us from California, and she is a brain transformation coach. She has a MSc in applied neuroscience, which is in progress, and she comes to us today with after completing her own journey of 2 years, when she finally realized of breaking herself down, going through self-exploration, finally realized that everything that we do, it's all in our head. And when that sentence ticked her is when she decided she wants to do neuroscience. She's also a parent. She's a parent of an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. The one thing that she said to me is when you become a parent, when we started this conversation, we were just talking, and she said, when you become a parent, you become everything that you didn't want to become. You become a nanny, you become a coach, you become a father, a mother, or a therapist. Everything that you can think of, you have to become. You have to adopt that role. So we're very grateful today that Cindy has decided to join us, and we're going to get a completely different perspective into how your brain works and why do our teenagers such loved teenagers do what they do. And hopefully you will go away with some very key takeaways today. So with that, let's welcome Cindy to the show. Hi, Cindy. It's lovely to have you, and thank you for joining us.
Hello. It is so good to be here. I so enjoyed, I just enjoyed our talk at the very beginning. You're a lovely person.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you for those kind remarks. So I forgot to mention, Cindy owns an organization called Soul Truth, and she's, again, I think I said that, she's based in California. And we will mention her socials at the end of the conversation when we upload it onto our YouTube channel, and you can get in touch with her should you need to. So Cindy, tell me, the one thing that we always hear, and I'm sure this is a very common question because I get it a lot, so I'm sure as a brain transformation coach, you get it too, which is, my kid is so difficult, and I dread it when they come back from school. And this is especially, I think, for college-going kids. When they come back, the parents have stayed away from them for a semester, 6 months, and they come back and they're home, and it's a very dreadful feeling. Not that I have it. I mean, I guess I'm okay, but a lot of parents can associate with that feeling. Tell us a little more about that. Why and how can we manage it?
Yeah, I think I love words and verbiage, and it's so important. What we use to describe things. Let me give a little example here. I'll just use this as an example. So this pen right here, let's say if I hold it up, you didn't even see it, and I was just like, hey, I bought this really cool pen. I went to a pen store, and it's so beautiful. They use like mahogany wood. It feels so good in your hands. It just is smooth and shiny. Would you like to hold it? Or if I would say, man, I found this on the floor and it looks like there's like food crusted on it or something. Would you like to just take a look at it and see what you think it is? So between those two examples, the only thing that changed, tell me, what are the only things that changed?
I think my entire outlook to those two things changed completely. One thing was that my brain refuses to recognize the second one. I'm like, ew, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. So you had a physiological response.
Yes.
To it either way. But what actually changed? In my description, did the pen actually change? I mean,
no.
Because actually it's just a regular old pen.
Yeah, the pen didn't change, but your expression changed. Your expression of the pen. I mean, expression in the sense of what you were saying about.
So the only thing that really changed were the words that I used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was only the words that changed that physiological response.
Correct.
And the other thing that changed was just kind of my own expression, like physically, that you took in. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to say this really ugly pen with a big smile on your face. So your response follows that. So sorry. So really, it's only the words that change. So to your point, to your question, When we think in our head, it's going to be so hard when our teen comes home. I
Mm-hmm.
really dread them coming home. Um, it's no different than this pin. What are you messaging to your body how to respond when your teen comes home?
Very interesting.
You are messaging to your body that it's going to be rough. It's going to be a tough time,
So you've already
right?
convinced yourself.
You have already convinced yourself, you have already told your brain, and then your brain will tell your body how you need to respond
Great.
when that event happens. But
Wonderful.
what happens if you change what you tell yourself? When you um man, my teen is so difficult. I dread them coming home. What happens if you change that verbiage and you think about, even if it may be challenging for you, because each parent, each kid, their dynamics are very different, but think about something that you really admire or you love about your kid. You can up with one thing, and if you can't in that moment because it's so hard for you, go back to when they were little. What is one thing? Man, I really loved their laugh and their giggle. Like, it made me so happy. I really love that. So you can say whatever you want, but you can change it. And so one word that I love, I was having a particularly challenging time as a
Mm-hmm.
parent, and I noticed that my thoughts were leading me down. So I would say, wow, he really is such a fantastic, phenomenal kid.
Mm-hmm.
He is fantastic and he's phenomenal. And when I said those words, then my brain kind of opened up and looked for reasons to back up why he is phenomenal and fantastic. And then I could think a little bit easier about, oh, wow, I really love how he thinks about this. I like that he likes this. And then when they get home, your body is already primed that this fantastic person is coming in. You will have more patience. Your
Mm-hmm.
body, I mean, is it going to go completely smoothly the first couple times? Probably not,
Ah,
but you will respond differently and you will feel differently. So
it's
that's
all
what I,
about telling what you tell yourself.
yeah, yeah.
That your
Specific to
reaction,
the
that your outward
situation.
reaction changes to your specific reaction. Yeah, no, I hear you.
Completely.
I hear you. It's all about changing your mindset. It's all in the mind, right? We all say it's all in
It
our heads.
is.
Like you said, it's all in our heads. That's where it begins. So, yes. And
Yes.
then they, of
Yes.
course, they will push your buttons here and there, and then you have to
Of
continuously go
course.
back to that dialogue. So, what happens when they push your buttons? What do you do? So let's say
Well,
we've
when,
changed the dialogue in our head, right? But
mhm.
they come in and we have this dialogue in our head. But what happens if they push the buttons? Then how do we react?
Yeah, I think it's so important because that is more, and all of this stuff doesn't come super easily. Well, it can, but it is a practice to basically retrain your brain how to take that information in and to think of it differently. So when they push your buttons, um, we kind of are conditioned to think that when someone pushes our buttons, they're doing it intentionally to hurt us or to
Yes.
get at us or to irritate us. And so when we think about it that way, we are primed to, they're trying to hurt us, they're trying to irritate us. And then that makes you more irritated towards them, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's this
Correct.
whole cycle. But what happens if you just step back and um you think about it, like even from like a little kid, a little toddler, they're like, oh man, it's the terrible twos. You know, man, they're just doing this to like irritate me. Will they just stop and listen to my words? But if you stop and you think about that, does a 2-year old really just think, I want to irritate my parents, the two people I love the most? No, that's not even on their brain, on their wavelength, but we carry that with them, that if they do anything, they don't listen or whatnot, they're doing it to get back at us. It's like some nefarious, like weird thing that they're trying to do to us. But what happens if your team comes home and they are just not listening, they're not responding, they're short or whatnot? There are reasons why they're doing that. Probably 99% of the time, it doesn't have anything to do with
To
you at
do
that
with you.
moment.
I absolutely, I
It
so
it
agree
has
with
it,
you.
ha- it has nothing to do with you, and if you can just be like, step back and tell yourself, with practice again, because we're so used, our brain goes to that place, they're trying to hurt us, they're trying to irritate us, but step back and be like, no, this probably has nothing to do with me. Maybe if I give them time and I just don't respond, maybe I can just go and ask them later, hey, you know, what is it that was making you, did something happen at school? And if they're still like, I don't want to talk about it, well, that's okay. But you can recognize and have the headspace to give them that space if you realize it has probably nothing to do with you.
Thank you,
By
Cindy. I
telling
think that
by
is,
telling yourself something different.
yeah, no, I so agree with you. I always tell my parents when I'm coaching my parents, I always tell them, don't react to their reactions, give them space. It's all about doing your inner work as a parent because you need to take a step back,
Yeah,
right? Identify your own
completely,
reactions.
completely, and telling yourself a different story, like in that moment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I could not, and I also think in some way or another, we have put our teens in a box. Now, I'm not going to say teen
Mm,
years are easy. Teen years are definitely very hard for the teenager as well as parents. And I don't mean to, I am not going to say that it's by any means it's a small feat, especially for parents who are raising. I mean, you're raising two, right? I was raising one. So it was
yeah,
still relatively easier. And because I'm a single mother, it was a lot easier because there was nobody else to kind of, give a different
yes,
opinion. So it was a
yes.
lot easier for me. But I think we put our teens in a box, but a lot of parents also come to me saying, why do teen years have to be so hard? So
Oh,
what would you, if a parent came and told you, like, why is it so hard? How would you handle that? And I'm
mm,
sure a lot of parents who are listening to this would echo with this, that why do teen years have to be so hard?
yeah. I think to piggyback on what you just said, it's like kind of putting them in a box. Like, in addition, I mean, I feel like there's a couple different facets. I mean, there's so many facets, right, that come into why we experience it as so challenging. One was like, if you go back in history, right, teenage years, people, those ages were allowed to go out, start families on their own. They were given responsibility. They were seen as adults. And I think part of what we do culturally now, we have cut off those years and said, no, you're still kids at home. You're still kids at home. You still can't decide for yourself because your frontal lobe isn't developed. I mean, we
It's
box
going to
them.
develop at 25. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
true, which we're
Well,
not arguing about that.
yeah, it is so true. But because of that, we say that they can't, we diminish their capacity to think and make good choices, right? And
And I also think we stop them from
so
committing their own
something that was
mistakes.
like evolutionary a long time ago, like you're out of the house, you're getting married, you're starting kids, now that whole time we're still trying to like keep them close, and it's this like pull, like tug and pull, like they know they want to be out there, but they're here. And it's kind of I feel like culture has played a big piece in that. Um, but in addition to that is we also prime from when they're little, from before we even have kids. We are messaged and told teen years are so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And as a parent, we are taught from, oh man, enjoy these years before the teen years. How many times have you
Oh
probably heard
yes.
that
Oh,
before your kid became a
it's the
teenager,
teens.
right?
It's so cliched. Yeah.
So yeah, we are just messaged from a really young age that the teen years are hard. And it's like no different than I was talking about that pin earlier, right? Um, of we prime ourselves for years that these years have to be really difficult. And so
Correct.
it's not so much, I don't like to put it so much on the kids, right? Responsibility, but as parents, we can really change how we think about it. And we can prime ourselves differently, like, wow, they are really trying to develop their own sense of self. They are trying to develop their place in the world. And if you can tell yourself those different, and it causes a different response in your body, right?
Correct.
And and I think also, um, a little bit comes from, teens are really smart, especially I feel like these days they are super smart, um, and they know what is consistent and not consistent. And it's not like when they were little and we could fudge a little bit, of like, oh no, that's not what I meant, or no, teens know these things. And it can be really hard, like on the brain. I mean, just our brain functioning. Our brain needs consistency, and it needs, um, to know what to expect. And if we are not consistent as parents in what we are saying and doing, that alignment, like if we say we believe something, but we act completely differently, that can cause some like thoughts, not good thoughts in your kids' minds, you know, and they're like, man, they're saying one thing, they're doing another, but they want me to do this. They want me to be honest with them. They want me to be open with them, but they are not getting that from us.
Correct. I think children are now, teens are demanding more and more now. I mean, they're demanding equal partnership, you know, and as it
Yes,
should be, as a
and
parent,
it
as
should
it
be.
should be. I think it's time,
Yes,
the time is up to really sit on your parent pedestal. And I'm writing a
yes.
book. I've just finished a book and it's supposed to be published next month.
Oh,
But,
wonderful.
and I mentioned all of these control and judgment and all of these factors in that book. But I think those times have gone where you can sit on your parent pedestal and say, okay, because I said
Yep.
so. The because I said so doesn't work anymore. And as it shouldn't, you know,
Yeah.
because if you want to raise individuals who can self
Hmm.
advocate and who can go out and make a difference in the world, they should be given their voice and they should be allowed to ask questions.
Well, and I think that is a very super, I think that's excellent because I think we know it in our heads that we should allow them to have a voice and everything. But quite honestly, and this is where it does come back to the parents, of it can be really scary and it can be really threatening to a lot of people,
Hmm.
maybe because of their own past or
Yes.
whatnot, that it is very threatening that their child is voicing an opinion that is different from theirs, who has a
Yep.
thought that's different. Um, and and so I mean I don't know what to say, but in that point, it's kind of the parent's responsibility to acknowledge I can't handle this well. It causes
Hmm.
a response in me when my kid wants to do something that I have always told them is not good.
So, how do you manage that response as a parent? How do you manage that response?
I think the
I mean, it's
first
one thing to be aware, but it's one thing to manage the response.
exactly. And I think a big key of that is to first acknowledge.
Okay. So, your
It
first
is,
step is to acknowledge.
yeah, your first step is to acknowledge that um, I do not feel good. It causes anger, it causes resentment, it causes
Yep.
some kind of emotional response in
Which I
me
don't like.
that I don't like when my kid comes and says, "Well, I'm going to do this."
Yep.
Or that you see them doing something, or you see them being dishonest about something, or whatever values you have trained them with,
Yep.
um, is to acknowledge my response is, I'm not feeling good about this. And it can take you a long time to sit in that uncomfortableness to be like, okay, I'm really done feeling like this because the kind of kid that I want was not a kid that I was allowed to be. And if I and
Yeah.
if I and if I want that kid to be proud of my kid that he can have a voice and he can be a change maker and all this stuff, that means the only way to change it so he's not like me or she's like me is I need to change. Something
That's
needs
a
to
very
change.
scary place for a parent to be in.
It is a very scary place because we have to do some hard work if we want something different
Yes.
from our own experience. Plain
Correct.
and simple. I mean, yeah, we just so I think
Yeah.
acknowledging it first and getting to the place to where you realize that there's nothing else you can do except for you to change.
Yeah. And the one thing that I tell my parents all the time, don't worry that your child is not listening to you. Worry that your child is watching you.
Hmm.
Because everything that you're doing, your child is watching you. And
Completely,
what you
completely.
do, you're a mentor. I mean, they're looking up to you. So what you're going to do is what your child is going to do. So be very
Yes.
careful. Don't worry. Don't come to me and say that your child is not listening to you, because
Yeah.
that's the least of my concerns. So
Yeah.
really,
And yeah, and also what a powerful example to show your kid that they have this experience of you as a parent
mhm,
and then they see you changing.
yep.
That you find out ways to change, like how powerful for them to see that they also have the power as they get older, that you never have to just stay the same way.
Now, like I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. My child, when I used to get upset earlier, when he was going through the teen years, I mean now he's 19. He's still going through teen years,
Hmm.
but the hardest years are over. And I would get upset with him, and then I wouldn't talk because I was so scared of blowing up. So I would go and I would go and I'd say, look, I don't want to talk right now because I'm really
Yes.
angry, and if I talk right
Yes.
now, I'm going to say something wrong.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to step away, and then I wouldn't talk to him and I would close him off, which I think a lot of parents would relate to this. And then I had to do my inner work. And then now he's become so emotionally intelligent that when I keep quiet, he'll
Yes.
come. When I'm angry, he'll come and he'll hold me tight. He says, Mom, you got to express. Because if you don't,
Mm,
I know you're angry. You need to say what's inside of you because there's something that's making you angry, which is making you quiet.
exactly.
So he's become that emotionally
That's
intelligent. But for
beautiful.
that, I had to be vulnerable in front of me in him because but it
Yes.
was a very difficult thing to do.
Yes. Yeah. It is very difficult, but how beautiful because you reap the rewards now of you have an emotionally intelligent child who is, I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and
And
it's
and I
beautiful
and
in
I
a
can
way, and
see that.
he's
No,
just
no, sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no, I started. I want to hear what
The
you
one
say.
thing is he's training to be a bodybuilder, so he's 6 feet and he's huge.
Whoa.
So when he comes and holds me, I almost get lost. I'm like, okay, dude, I get you.
You seriously feel the love.
I feel the love big time.
Well, yeah, I
So
mean, and I feel that with like even my boys, like my own journey and learning to handle all of my responses to them and being really messy about it many times and but being honest and vulnerable about it like later, like I learned really quickly that in order for my kids to have something different, I needed to go back and also acknowledge and apologize where an apology was necessary.
absolutely, without
And
doubt.
and so my kids, I mean, it is like when you put in that messy work on yourself and it's messy in front of them, it's
Yeah.
beautiful to see those
It
returns.
is
Yes,
beautiful
I
and it's
love that.
very hard, but you know what? I make it a point to apologize
Yep,
to my child time and
completely.
again, time
Completely.
and again. And I don't think there's anything wrong in doing that. I don't think I feel small as a parent. I don't think,
No.
I think if anything, it develops more respect as a
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah,
So,
because I mean, we
yeah,
want them to be someone, right? We want them to be someone who can apologize or acknowledge when they kind of didn't
absolutely.
do their best, and they can only do that by learning it from
I
us.
so agree with you. I so agree with you. No, this conversation is so lovely. So tell me, I know that communication is a very riddled concept in
Yeah.
teenagers, right? At least that's what people think. So
Yes.
I disagree with that a little bit because I think
Mm-hmm.
it all stems from you. And I do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it on social media, and I put it out there that even though it's
Yes.
a riddled concept, you can break that cliche. But what are
Mm-hmm.
your views on how can you break that communication gap during
Mm-hmm.
teenagers?
Yeah, the communication gap. Again, I think it comes back to like, how do you think about communication, right? I feel like so many of us, it's kind of ingrained in us that to have a conversation is
Hmm.
hard. It's hard, and that hard conversation has to have lots of emotion.
Interesting.
You can't, I mean, if we all have our own definitions of communication, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, we think there's something underlying that it's hard. You have to be on. It's like you have to be honest, especially like if you're talking to a kid or if you're like I want to have a conversation with my kid about X, Y, and Z. It seems like there has to be like some kind of confrontation or something there. I have to bring up something that I'm not
Mm.
that may be uncomfortable or you know what I mean. So that's what I mean by hard. It brings up a lot
So
of
maybe the
different
word
emotions.
conversation? Do you think it's again, you go back to the verbiage, right? You
The
go back to
verbiage,
again the words.
yeah.
So the word conversation, it can be
I think
hard.
it brings up a lot
Correct.
of different feelings for each of us. I mean, we go back to how did our parents converse with us? Was it really conversing or was it telling?
Oh,
Was
I
it
think it was telling.
instructing?
It was
Was
instructing.
it truly a mutual conversation? That's what I mean. Like, what is ingrained in us? And when your boss wants to have a conversation with you,
Yes.
what is the first thing that comes up? When I'm just like, if a
Or
friend
a
says, "Hey,
wife tells her husband, we
yeah,
need
I
to
need to
talk.
talk with you." Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. We are programmed that there is this response in us that it's hard, it's uncomfortable. But what happens if we tell ourselves, we switched it to more of like a truthful statement? I want to
Hmm.
talk to my teen and I want him to talk back. I want to have like, I want it to be,
I want to talk to him. Yeah.
I just want to talk to them. Yeah, there's some questions I have on my mind. I would love some answers.
Mm.
I would love to see what's going on with him. I've noticed he's been kind of irritated with a lot lately. I just I just want to see what's on their mind. And you keep it like, and I'm sure you do this in your coaching, like you keep it neutral.
Correct.
There doesn't have to be a good and bad. There doesn't have to be all these emotions coming into play when we say we want to talk to our teen.
And you're not coming from a place of assumptions either.
No, not presumptions. And I mean, it's completely neutral. I just want to see what's
Yeah.
on their mind.
I just want to, yeah. Then you
You
kind of,
want to
you're not
explore.
psyching yourself up, right? You're not psyching yourself up. You're
No.
saying, okay, I just want to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to explore. It keeps it neutral. It keeps you questioning and curious when you go in with that mindset. But if you tell yourself, oh man, this is gonna be hard. They don't like it when I talk to them. It
Mm-hmm.
always ends in a fight. Again, it goes back
You've
to that whole
already, yeah.
yeah,
You've
it's
already
like the whole
trained your
pin
mind
thing.
to say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, rather than little subtle things that you can message to yourself, like what is the truth? Two people are going to be talking. Those two
Yeah.
people are my teen and I. That's the truth. Plain
Yeah.
and simple, right?
We don't have to make a big deal about it.
No, we don't have to make a big deal about it at all. So I guess that's what that's kind of how I would kind of view that situation.
So tell me, there are a lot of parents who come to me and turn around and say that, I've had this conversation about drugs, sex, alcohol with my teen, but I'm so scared they're still making bad choices.
Yes.
What would you say to a parent like that?
Those are really good questions because we put a lot of pressure on those topics, don't we?
We do.
We
do.
picked and choose some topics that are kind of like the end all be all in a teenager's life.
And they're not.
They're not. And I was going to ask you, since you work with more teens than I do, you probably see that, right? You probably see that parents are worried or concerned, or that's where we put our emphasis. And is that really where we should be putting
You'd
our
be
emphasis?
surprised. I think more than putting emphasis, I mean, we go two ways, right? One side is that a lot of parents put emphasis on it, and the other side is that parents just don't want to deal with it. I mean, there was a parent who I was telling them that, look, you need to have this conversation. You need to have the sex conversation. You need to have the alcohol, drugs conversation before the child turns 17, because I feel like when they, according to their biological clock, by 16, 17, they're starting to explore all of that. And they just refused to. And so did the child. And the child said, I'd rather have a conversation about this with you. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling the parents, like, and I had the conversation with the child. I had the sex conversation. It was a 17-year-old boy. And I do this regularly. So it really wasn't awkward for me. But what surprised me was that as a parent, you're not willing to have that conversation with your child just because nobody had that conversation with you. And you're willing to put your child out in danger into the world without giving him the actual information about what it could do to him. So I think that's what surprises me more about it. And I think if you let it out openly, it's not such a big deal in teens. Sure, they're going to do it. You and I did it. Everybody does it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think I loved what you said, because like what comes into my mind with this is we have made like these 4 topics taboo their whole life.
Yes.
We have made them taboo, and then all of a sudden they are the most important things in their life.
It's because we made it taboo.
Because we have made it taboo, and then we also have made it the most important thing. And
because we are putting it behind, right? So our brain is saying anything that we're trying to hide comes more in the forefront.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're like telling our kids, these taboo topics that we've never wanted to talk about, and it's awkward and weird and all this stuff. Now we're like, ooh, let's get all cozy and have these conversations. I mean, that's that inconsistency that they see in us, and they're calling us on it. And they can see when we're uncomfortable with it, and they're like, oh, no.
Yeah, we're not doing it.
No, we're not doing this. We're going to do our own thing. If it was really that important, you would have said something earlier.
Correct.
I mean, so there's
Oh my God,
I think with
this
you,
one's a big one. This one's a big one. Yeah, no,
it is
so the consistency thing stands out for me because if since a child you've put the sex topic under the alcohol and the sex and the drugs
completely,
topic under the
completely.
carpet, they're not going to be willing to talk to you about it. I so agree with you on that one.
Yes,
So
yes,
I think we're in the interest of time. Let me ask you my last question, even though I don't want to let you go. I think this conversation is super interesting. So some parents come and say they're very concerned with the child being depressed, stressed, anxious, and they say we've tried counseling, but it's not helping. What do we do?
hmm
What would you
So
say
good.
to a parent like that?
That's a good question, and that's a big question, and there is no one answer to that, even though we want a one answer. But um, it kind of goes back to everything that we've mentioned so far. It really is, maybe it's not the teen's issue that needs to be, it really does come back to you as a parent.
How?
And
How would you say so?
how would you say so? I think it's by everything that we've talked about, that our kids are, I mean, this sounds really cliche. Our kids are a reflection
Offense.
of of us, who we've raised them to be, how we've raised them to be. And we have brought so much of our own baggage, our own stuff of what I mean, nitty gritty, like the neural connections that were formed in us when we were a child are how we have parented and what we pass on to our kids, unless we've done the hard work to change those connections. And so if you want to have a happier child, one that is adjusted and can go through life and come through, these years not so scathed by them, I think, as a coach, they need you as a parent, and they need you at your very best. Like, these are the years that they need you at your very, very best.
Yes.
And again, like what I said, if we keep doing the same thing over and over, we'll keep getting the same result.
Results. Yes.
Yeah. And so if you've put your teen in counseling and therapist and all this stuff and nothing is changing, maybe you just need to look somewhere else.
Yep.
And that could be you.
Yep. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
So
While the teen depression and all of that is real and it can
yeah,
happen, it's nothing that
completely.
cannot be managed. But here is what I'm going to
Completely.
add to what you say is
Yes, please.
I urge every parent, please, your first option should not be an anti-anxiety and an antidepressant.
Mhm.
Because what you're telling the child at that point in time, if they haven't been clinically diagnosed, mind you, if they've been clinically diagnosed, absolutely, without a doubt, then you know what you're doing. But if they're
Yeah.
not clinically diagnosed and they want
Yes.
to take the anti-anxiety and the antidepressants,
Mhm.
please keep them away from it, because then you're just telling them take the easy way out, and you're putting a lid on the depression, on the anxiety. You need to take it out of the road.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to be my closing comment. But Cindy, this is so helpful. I think this was one of the most
Mhm.
interesting conversations I've had. So thank you so much. We're at 34 minutes. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a lovely journey with you, and I do hope we keep in touch. Of course, we will. We'll continue to
Yes.
talk, and
I
we'll
love
do
it.
more such things. And I hope that every parent enjoys this. We will mention Cindy's details on our socials again when we put it out on our socials and on my YouTube channel. Please stay tuned for it. So thank you, Cindy, for being with us. Lovely to be here with you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.